Adrian Locke was a man whose very presence commanded silence. At 38, he was one of the most powerful billionaires in the city, the owner of Locke Enterprises, a vast empire of luxury hotels, tech investments, and properties spread across continents. His wealth was legend, his arrogance even more so. People described him as a man with a heart carved from marble, polished on the outside but unyielding on the inside. His penthouse, perched on the 76th floor of Locke Tower, was a monument to extravagance. Walls of glass that overlooked the restless city, marble floors that reflected the glow of crystal chandeliers, and furniture so costly that a single chair could feed a family for years. Yet despite the glitter, the place felt cold. No laughter, no warmth, only the ticking of clocks and the echoes of wealth. In the midst of all this grandeur worked Alina. She was not more than 26, with soft features and eyes the color of warm coffee. Her presence was quiet, almost invisible, yet there was a resilience in the way she carried herself. Every morning, she arrived in a plain uniform, her hair neatly tied back, her shoes scuffed but polished. She cleaned, dusted, arranged flowers, polished silver, and sometimes even cooked, when Adrian demanded. Alina never complained. Not about the long hours, not about the sharp remarks that Adrian tossed her way when his coffee wasn't brewed just right, or when she accidentally left a streak on the glass windows. She simply bowed her head, whispered an apology, and continued. To Adrian, she was just another servant, another pair of hands paid to maintain the shine of his empire. But to Alina, the job was survival. She supported her younger brother and mother back in a cramped two-room apartment in the outskirts of the city. Every dollar mattered. Every insult had to be swallowed, because pride did not pay rent, and dignity did not buy medicine. A collision of worlds. One Friday evening, Adrian prepared for a high-profile dinner meeting. Investors from overseas were arriving, and appearances had to be immaculate. He barked orders without looking up from his laptop. Alina, the dining hall must gleam, not a speck of dust. The wine Chateau Margaux, 2005. And for God's sake, wear something decent while serving tonight. I don't want my guests to think I employ beggars. Alina froze, the words stabbing her quietly. She managed a faint "yes, sir," before retreating. In the privacy of the kitchen, her hands trembled as she arranged crystal glasses. Her uniform was plain, but clean. Still, in Adrian's eyes, it was unworthy. That night, the penthouse filled with the hum of expensive suits, laughter drenched in arrogance, and glasses clinking like tiny bells. Alina moved between the guests silently, serving wine, bringing out courses prepared by the hired chef. She kept her eyes lowered, her steps careful. But one of the guests, a man with a golden watch and cruel smirk, caught her wrist as she poured wine. "Tell me," he sneered loudly enough for others to hear, "does Locke pay you enough to smile? Or does your face charge extra?" The table erupted in laughter. Adrian didn't intervene. He smirked faintly, sipping his wine, as though the humiliation of his maid was part of the entertainment. Alina's cheeks burned, but she forced her lips into a polite curve and quietly withdrew. Later, when the guests had left and the laughter had died down, Alina lingered near the sink, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. For the first time, Adrian noticed. "What's wrong now?" he asked, annoyed. "Nothing, sir," she whispered, but her voice cracked, betraying her. Adrian stared at her for a long moment, then dismissed it. "Don't bring your emotions into work. That's weakness. Clean up before you leave." And he walked away, leaving her standing amidst the dirty plates and broken pieces of her dignity, a humble invitation 2 weeks later. On a rare Sunday off, Alina dressed in her simplest dress, a faded blue cotton piece she had mended thrice. Her childhood friend Daniel had invited her to a small diner near the riverbank. Daniel wasn't rich. He worked as a mechanic, his hands always smelling faintly of grease and metal. But his heart was kind, and his eyes lit up whenever Alina was near. When she arrived at the diner, Daniel greeted her warmly. "Alina, over here." He had chosen a small booth by the window, where sunlight spilled in golden threads. On the table were 2 burgers, fries, and sodas. "It's not much," Daniel admitted sheepishly, "but I wanted to treat you. You've been working so hard." Alina smiled, truly smiled, for the first time in weeks. "It's perfect." They talked, laughed softly, shared stories about childhood, about dreams. Daniel spoke about saving money to open his own garage one day. Alina confessed how she wished to study again, maybe become a teacher. For a brief moment, the weight of survival lifted from her shoulders. But fate is cruel. Unbeknownst to her, Adrian happened to drive by in his sleek black car. On his way to inspect one of his hotels near the river, he stopped at a red light, and through the diner's glass window, he spotted Alina, sitting with a man in grease-stained overalls, eating a burger, laughing. His jaw tightened. To him, the sight was absurd. His maid, who scrubbed his marble floors, now smiling like she belonged to another world. Curiosity, mixed with disdain, pulled him inside. The bell above the diner door jingled as he entered, drawing glances. Adrian Locke, in his tailored suit and polished shoes, was like a king entering a peasant's hut. Whispers spread quickly among the diners. Alina's smile froze when she saw him. Her heart thudded painfully. Daniel looked up, puzzled. "Sir." she breathed. Adrian's gaze swept over the greasy table, the paper napkins, the ketchup stains. Then, with a cold smirk, he said loud enough for everyone to hear, "So this is where you spend your hard-earned wages. How charming." The diner grew silent. Daniel's fists clenched under the table. Elena's face burned with shame. "Sir, please," she whispered, her eyes pleading, but Adrian wasn't done. "I must say, Elena, your taste in company is fitting. Cheap food, cheap dates. At least it matches your salary." A soft gasp rose from nearby tables. Elena's eyes blurred with tears. She wanted to disappear, to sink into the ground. Daniel, unable to contain himself, stood. "Hey, that's enough. You have no right to talk to her like that." Adrian turned his gaze on him, amused. "And who are you?" The knight in shining overalls. The insult hung in the air like smoke. Elena's tears spilled, unrestrained now, rolling down her cheeks as the humiliation carved into her soul. Adrian saw them, saw the tears glistening under the diner's yellow light. For the first time, something in him shifted, a crack, almost imperceptible, in the marble of his arrogance. But pride made him turn away. Without another word, he left the diner, his polished shoes clicking against the floor. Elena sat trembling, wiping her tears. Daniel reached across the table, holding her hands gently. "Don't cry. He doesn't deserve your tears." But deep inside, Elena wondered if dignity was a luxury she could never afford. And Adrian, driving away, couldn't shake the image of her tears from his mind. They followed him like ghosts, haunting the silence of his expensive car, echoing against the cold walls of his glass and gold prison. Adrian Locke had always prided himself on control. Control of his empire, control of his image, control of every detail in the vast machinery of his wealth. Yet after that night at the diner, something slipped out. The memory of Elena's tear-streaked face gnawed at him. It replayed in his mind while he reviewed contracts, during business calls. Even in the stillness of the night when he lay in his king-sized bed, staring at the ceiling. Her humiliation should have been meaningless, just another servant's weakness. But it wasn't. It unsettled him. Adrian told himself it was annoyance. That perhaps he had embarrassed himself by losing composure in front of strangers. But deep down he knew the truth. He had seen something raw, something human in Elena's tears. And it shook him, an unwanted silence. The following Monday, Elena returned to work. Her movements were even quieter than before. She avoided his gaze, never spoke unless absolutely necessary, and carried herself with an invisible weight. Adrian noticed when she polished the glass table in the living room. He found himself watching her reflection in its surface. When she arranged the fresh lilies in the vase, he caught himself staring too long at the way her fingers handled them gently, as though even flowers deserved care he had never given people. But when he tried to speak, words failed. "Elena," he began once, only to stop when she turned with those polite, unreadable eyes. "Never mind." The silence between them stretched, heavier each day. The conversation with Vincent, Adrian's oldest friend, Vincent Harrington, was another titan of industry, loud, indulgent, and twice as arrogant. One evening, as they smoked cigars on the balcony of Locke Tower, Adrian found himself speaking of Elena without realizing it. "She cried," Adrian murmured, staring at the skyline. Vincent raised an eyebrow. "And servants cry all the time. They cry when they're tired, when they're scolded, when they can't pay rent. That's their life." But it wasn't just weakness, it was... Adrian struggled, frowning. "It was like watching someone's dignity shatter. Over something I did?" Vincent chuckled. "Adrian, you're going soft. Since when do you care about the feelings of the help? You've built an empire by being ruthless. Don't ruin it over a maid's tears." Adrian said nothing, but inside, he wondered if Vincent was wrong. Elena's quiet strength. A week later, Adrian returned home earlier than usual. To his surprise, he found Elena in the kitchen, not in uniform but in a simple floral dress, humming softly as she peed.